distracted.
What's distracting?
I said I hope you're not driving distracted.
I am sitting in a Kmart parking lot. Gotta go to clean.
Hey, Mayor Jones, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us for this special meeting for the City Council, August 12th. First, we'll go ahead and get started with a roll call.
Councilor Lehman,
Here.
Councilor Nielsen,
Here.
Councilor Lowe. Here. Councilor Kazi.
Here.
Councilor Briscoe.
Here.
Councilor Andrade.
Present.
Mayor Jones.
I'm here. Thank you. And for tonight, we're going to be discussing the Downtown Safety and Streetscapes Improvement Project. We're going to discuss the bids and talk about a cost share ODOT. Chris, do you want to go ahead and get us started?
Yeah, just real briefly. So I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and, you know, big project and timing's important, and ODOT's going to appreciate waking up Monday morning and being able to take some movement on this one way or another. So appreciate taking a Friday night. I really want to appreciate staff, Mike especially, for pulling the memo together and getting this all prepared for you this evening. I think the memo kind of speaks for itself. So either Mike or I can say that part of it, but essentially, as I just said, as I reported last meeting, bids came in over the estimate. ODOT has reviewed it. We do have an agreement with ODOT on how those overages will be split. So based on that initial look, the city was looking to come in, or the ODOT was going to come in at 1.882. 695, and the city was going to be on the hook for just under $600,000. I reached back out to ODOT and talked about two specific line items. They're highlighted there, which was the street lighting. Very clearly, per the agreement, it's the city expense. But ODOT came around, I would say, fairly quickly, and very graciously agreed that they would split that 50-50 with the city. And so that brings the city's kind of overage amount to that 326,024, and don't forget the 6 cents. So for a project as large as this and the times that we're in, I feel like this is pretty good. Again, this is in addition to the, you know, additional funds that were already allocated in order to get to PS&E before it went out for bid. So this is on top of that. So we're getting closer to that kind of 600, just over $600,000 from PS&E, which was the number from for a year ago. So really, when you're talking about from a year ago to today, we're at about 600,000, 625,000 over where we were at for a bid a year ago. Feel pretty good about that. Not that I like spending the money, but percentage-wise, we're looking pretty good. So the rest, I'm going to turn it over to Mike and kind of talk through where the funds would come from. And then I think we can open it up to other questions. Mike, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. Yeah, sorry, I can't believe we're here, Chris. But anyway, the money's up. What we're going to do here is Council has delayed 11th Street LID. So there's approximately $343 set aside for that particular budget that we will move by budget adjustment beginning of next year. That will cover the 326,000. There's two things. I have to do a budget adjustment, but I won't have time. I usually do my budget adjustments twice a year, one after the audit and then right before the end of the year. So coming to council for direction or approval to go ahead and make this budget adjustment so we can cut the check on Monday and we can get this streetscape on moving forward. That's pretty much it. I gave you all the bids that we had. That's an old sheet, the bid sheet, but that is the one that they worked off. That's good. And then I gave you the email stream between Chris and Bill went over all the particulars. And one thing that they did put out, they pointed out to us that this will, anything direct decorative lighting will have to do an amendment to the IGA. But as I said, we'll just kick it down the road and do it, deal with it when it's time. So that's pretty much it. Oh, Corpac was the construction company that won the bid. They were the responsive and they were awarded the bid. They were all responsive, but they were awarded the bid. So that's what I have for you. Go ahead, Rich.
And Mike, can you remind us of what the total portion of the project that Philomath will be paying or was projected to pay, and then the total now?
Excuse me. We were projected to pay $5 million, roughly $5.1 million. We've already sent them that money. Now we've been given another bill for $326,000, and that's what we'll go ahead and make that payment if council approves that tonight.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes. With that, I'd love to have more of a conversation. I also want to get a motion on the table so that we have options for moving forward.
So I move the city council approve the funding noted in option 1 and approve the budget adjustment.
Thank you, Councilor Lowe. And we have a second by Councilor Kazi. With that, are there questions for staff? Comment? Councilor Kazi?
Yes, thank you. Chris, or I don't know that you would know this, Mike, but have we worked with Corpac before?
We've not worked with Corpac before. It wasn't a company that even Bill Ness at ODOT was familiar with. So don't have experience with them directly in our region.
Okay, and I assume that ODOT vets all the bidders with references and the like,
Correct.
and they have no reservations about working with this firm.
They've selected them as the winning bid. So they've gone through their process. There's a lot of legal processes they've got to go through and checks. And so, yeah, they're comfortable awarding the bid if the city's able to come up with this additional funding. Yes.
Okay, on page, I guess the third page of our packet, the heading says Oregon Department of Transportation bids have not been verified. Is that an old stamp or is that?
Yeah, that one's pretty old. But this is the one that they've had online since the bids came in. They've been working with this. That's what they worked with Corpac with, $13,966,000. So that's what they've been working with. There's nothing changed on any of these that I'm aware of.
Okay, okay. And can you tell me what is meant by decorative lighting?
I'm gonna defer that one to Chris. I'm thinking it's almost Victorian type lighting. I don't know. I'm not sure.
So decorative lighting for ODOT is anything other than their standard light that they use on the poles. So your Cobra lights that stick out and go straight down. What they don't want to be responsible for in the future is if there's additional overages on any of the decorative lighting in the downtown area, ODOT can't pay for that because they can't pay for decorative lighting. So that's the agreement with the update to the intergovernmental, or the update to the agreement with ODOT would specify that any additional overages, because this is the bid, we still got to actually make the purchase, there's still this process that goes over, and sometimes you'll get a change order. If it's significant enough, we might see a change order. What they're saying right now is if there's a change order and it's specific to decorative lighting, that's all going to be on the city. There's contingency already built in, there's whatever. So, and again, the fact that their estimate for the lighting was $600,000 higher than what we had estimated, or what the Murray Smith had estimated, seems like there's quite a bit of cushion there. So I think they should be pretty good, but again, we just don't know. But we will be on the hook for anything additional outside of just the Cobra lights And I don't believe we're installing any Cobra style ODOT standard lights within this project. It's all decorative lighting.
Okay, I know I've heard this term before, but what is the STIP budget? What is,
Oh, what is that, Chris? STIP, it's the street transportation improvement. I can't remember that. STIP. Is that the one you're
State
talking about?
transportation.
STIP.
Yeah, state transportation improvement
Okay, I can't remember
projects.
that.
thank
Okay,
you. And the PCO, what is the PCO project?
PCO, it's probably a simple acronym I'm not familiar with. Project, Catherine, or,
I don't know where you're looking in this document.
It was just in the email trail.
oh, let's see if I can find that.
It's not critical, but. And finally, are there any, is there the possibility of any additional cost overruns?
Oh, yeah, I would agree with Mr. Brewer. There is a possibility. We don't know what they are.
We have a contingency built into this project that's included in this bid, right? So that is part of, there is a contingency there. And so if there's change orders, it's gonna go against that contingency first and foremost. If it's specific to decorative lighting, then they're gonna look to the city to pay that. If it's not, then they're gonna put it towards that contingency and bring that contingency down. If we run out of contingency and we still have overages and they're still submitting, those all get negotiated. Those aren't give me's, those are all negotiated, and there's a process for change orders built into the contract that that ODOT will sign with the contractor on how to handle those change orders and how they get approved. And typically, they're not going to move forward with those until they know that they've got approval on those. But ODOT is, in essence, managing this project, and so the city of Philomath won't be approving or not approving change orders at this point. It'll be on ODOT.
Thank you.
I think you're muted, Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, Councilor Bisco.
I just was gonna comment, the PCO, I think is procurement, although that's not a normal acronym, but just looking at the context of that, so I think that's a procurement oversight. I also have some questions about contingency. So if I recall right, we talked about contingencies already being spent before we were at this process, which was something I wasn't 100% clear on. What is our contingency variability here would be a question that I have. And then another that I have is typically with ODOT, we have a notice of intent to award with contracts like this. And then there's a negotiation process that can take as much as a month, just by normal timeline standards, going back and forth between the different partners in the process of awarding a bid officially. Will the council have the opportunity to see whatever that negotiation might change in this contract amount before we move forward with this project? Meaning it could be nothing and it could be significant. So will we have that last look before approving this final project?
So to your first question, spending on the contingency, we started with a 30% contingency. And that's what's kind of dropped down as we've gone. And so that 30% contingency, there was a lot of unknowns. As we've gained more knowns, we've been able to decrease that contingency down. That's helped the overall project estimate come down, but a lot of that has been eaten up. We say the contingency has been eaten up. It's been eaten up by more certainty of these additional costs now that are no longer contingent. They're now known expenses. So the construction contingency, I believe, drops down to 1.5% is what the total contingency is. So on a $13 million project, a $14 million project, you have to do the math on that.
You say 1.5%?
1.5, yeah. It's 1.5 or 3. I have to double check on that. It's not including this bid. It's probably in the actual, but it's not in this breakdown that was done. It's 1.5 or 3%. As far as the approval of the bid and any negotiations, that is all handled by ODOT's procurement team. That's not something that the city's going to be involved in. So no, we won't have another look. What we are approving is ODOT saying, we need to go back and negotiate this and finalize this agreement. But as part of that, according to the IGA, the city's on the hook for this additional funding. Is the city gonna move forward with that additional funding? Yes or no? Then they go back and they'll finish negotiating. I'm not privy to those negotiations either.
So tonight is our last opportunity to yes or no to the whole project,
Yes.
besides just this additional amount. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you. Councilor Lowe, I saw you had a hand up.
Yeah, I want to go back to a question that Councilor Kazi had about Corpac itself. I guess I was a little surprised that ODOT doesn't seem to have any knowledge about them as a construction company. So I want to verify that if something goes wrong with them, it's on ODOT. The city would not be in a bad position. You know, I think we have developers come in, and if they don't do what they're supposed to do, then we have a problem. So I just want to be sure about that. I was surprised when you said that.
Yeah, and what I meant was our local representatives here. So like Bill Ness, that's our, our project rep on ODOT. He hasn't done a project with them. Certainly ODOT has done projects with PAPCO. This isn't their first highway project. This is the first time that our rep from ODOT has done a project with them.
Okay.
So,
But this is an ODOT.
this is an ODOT contract. And
So,
yes, ODOT would be responsible for following up on shortcomings, et cetera.
Okay.
Now, the city is, as part of this contract, ODOT, or the city is continuing to pay Murray Smith for engineering oversight of the project as well.
Okay.
And that's a part of our agreement with ODOT is some Philomath oversight, the engineer's oversight of construction process.
okay. Well, that gives me a better feeling for that relationship.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And, once you see a company like this, you start seeing those things. I've seen 2 Pavco pickup trucks just in the last couple of weeks. And so they are around, I don't think this is a company coming in from New Mexico or something like that. I mean, they're
I was just Googling them, so I got a bit of an idea.
right.
And before we go to Councilor Bisco, does anyone else have a question first? Just want to make sure, give everybody an opportunity. Councilor Andrade?
Yeah, I don't know if I just couldn't hear very well because of like the echoiness of the chamber or the papers rustling or whatever, but can you repeat what you said the Cobra lighting is?
Cobra lighting is the standard lighting that you see coming off of most power poles along ODOT right of way. It's just the long arm with the Cobra head looking bulb at the end of it. So they call it a Cobra light. It's just a typical ODOT standard light to light along the highway.
Okay, and then so are those in our pictures or like our diagrams? I don't remember seeing any sort of distinguishing between like that kind of lighting versus any sort of decorative lighting.
The lighting.
And so I'm just trying to get a better sense of what this looks like.
Yeah, so I don't believe any Cobra lighting is being installed in our project, other than potentially at some of the intersections. For the most part, all of the lighting, at least the overages here, and this lighting is attributed to the pedestrian scale lighting that the city selected, which is the wood posts and the wood arm and the light hanging down from the arm. That's what will be installed along the highway.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry, Councilor.
Okay. Timeline, as far as this construction project, with inflation continuing to rise and such, are we on a good timeline for proceeding? If we were to approve this evening, timeline to begin the streetscape project hasn't changed with this new modification?
So we did bump the timeline several months ago, maybe about 6 months ago. We had to bump back. We were supposed to go out for bid end of July. We bumped that to, or no, we're supposed to be end of May, excuse me. We went to end of July. And so that was the only bump we've had in schedule. That's the only change in schedule. So Murray Smith, our engineer, feels good about the time frame that they've set out. There's a lot of detail in the engineering forms for traffic control and steps along the way and all of that. So all of that's kind of been done. And as long as the contractor stays on that schedule, then yeah, there's a lot of confidence that we'll meet those timeframes. Even when they bumped those 2 months, they didn't feel like they needed to bump the 2 months at the end of the project. They felt like they could make that up throughout the project timeframe. But there's delays and there, you know, so for right now, we all feel pretty good. We haven't got a shovel on the ground yet though. So
All right, thank you.
there's some variables out there still. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Any other questions before I go to Councilor Bisco? Councilor Bisco.
So my comment was just a follow-up to Councilor Lowe's questions about Corpac. They have worked with ODOT on numerous projects, but they're Portland centered most often. In my experience and understanding and working with some of these firms, they're fully capable of this work, and certainly ODOT would have performance bonding as part of the requirement for this. So if you look up Corpac, you should be able to find enough information to support that. Just as a comment in response to your questions.
Thank you. And Councilor Kazi.
I just wanted to commend the city manager on negotiating the reduction in the lighting cost. That made a big difference on the impact to us.
Yeah, it went from 24% before that to just 13% now, so it's quite a reduction.
Yeah, again, I don't want to take a credit. That's ODOT being a good partner on this. They recognize the expense, you know, that's money that ODOT doesn't have for other projects, right? So to me, it just shows this is an important project for ODOT, and they recognize the hardship that would have been on Philomath. You know, finding $324,000 is no small feat. Fortunately, unfortunately, we had another project already budgeted, and that's simple to take that street money and put it to this street project. But you get up at 600,000, it would have been a little more difficult to come up with those funds. And ODOT recognized that. That was really the phone conversation with Mr. Ness, was to make sure I expressed that and feeling like if we can get some movement on the lighting, which, as I said in the email, it would be required of ODOT if they were doing this project on their own, although it wouldn't be decorative, they'd still have that cost there. And again, contrary to the agreement that we have with them, they were willing to go ahead and help us out. So again, off to a good start. And yeah, I give ODOT all the credit for being willing to help us out there.
Thank you. With that, I think we can go ahead and call it a vote.
Before you start, Mayor, can I put a couple of things on the record? I think the council all knows that the funds from the 11th Street LID project are not a tax assessment levied against those property owners because the LID never got created. But I think it'd be good to have that in the minutes. So I'm going to say that. Similarly, I know that we had a discussion about a grant that was going to go to that LID project, and that's not this money either. This is just street money, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So it's money that is all within the council's control, and we don't have other conditions on it. And that's the point that I wanted to make and preserve in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burr. With that, Councilor Lowe.
Just as a follow-up to Councilor Brewer, so in terms of the sidewalks that we're going to be put in, that's not affected either, right?
No.
Correct. Okay, just want to be part of the record too.
With that, all in favor of passing the motion as stated, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. And we thank you very much, guys. Thank you to the council for coming together tonight and for pushing this project forward. But with that, I think we can go ahead and adjourn for the evening. And weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Short and sweet. Like that.
Yeah.
We are still live streaming.
Careful.
Sure.